Hello, lovely, and welcome to the Essence of Expression podcast. Get ready to explore insights, lessons, practices, and wisdom from life for life. I'm your host, Arejay, healer, teacher, student, and sage. I'm excited and honored to have you with me on this journey. Let's dive in. So today's episode is inspired by a question in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in. And someone came in and they were basically asking how to get started with shadow work because they have a lot of guilt and shame around some of the things that they've done in the past. And while shadow work can be one route for this, I had to wonder if forgiveness and doing work around that wouldn't be a faster and more direct route for this person. So I asked, but then they weren't sure how to get started with forgiveness, right? So when we're doing forgiveness work, one of the things that sometimes can be helpful is seeing if we've forgiven others. And that's a great practice ground for being able to forgive ourselves, because in my experience, being able to forgive yourself is probably the harder thing to master. So having gone through and forgiven others and having these practices and these experiences of forgiveness under our belt can be really beneficial when we try to then work and forgive ourselves and liberate ourselves from the guilt and the shame of past actions, past thoughts, whatever the case may be. So I wanted to share with you guys a couple of tools for forgiveness, and I shared these same tools with her. But the first one, and this is one of my favorites because it's really easy to begin working with, is the Buddhist prayer forgiveness. And that prayer goes, for those of you who are not familiar with it: if I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through my own confusions, I ask their forgiveness. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through their own confusions, I forgive them. And if there is a situation I am not yet ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that. For all the ways that I harm myself, negate, doubt, belittle myself, judge, or be unkind to myself through my own confusions, I forgive myself. So that's one of them, and I really like working with it because it's accessible no matter really like what's going on. It's very easy to just kind of step away and say the prayer, or even like mentally say the prayer. So that's kind of what I liked about it. And I probably worked with the prayer forgiveness when I was doing my forgiveness work. I worked with it daily for a good year. But I think I was in, like, my forgiveness work stage was probably a 2-year-long phase in my life, I'd say, at this point. But so that's one of the tools. Another one is Ho'oponopono. And that can be really helpful. It's traditionally viewed as something used for others, but it is something that you can actually reformat and just take a slightly different approach and work with yourself for. The third tool is actually like letters of forgiveness. So writing letters can be to those you felt have wronged you. It can be writing letters to yourself, right? But taking the time to write that you're forgiving them, what you're forgiving them for, and can be really helpful, right? And then when we're doing it for ourselves, it can be like you can go through the same process, and then you can also like expand and explain, like think about why it was that you had done these or why you thought that way, and then be able to like forgive yourself for that, for those ways of thinking and for those patterns of behavior, and and note the fact that you like the different understanding that you have now versus the understanding that you had then, right? It can be really powerful to see the difference and to know that you're actually growing. And then the fourth tool that I really enjoy is actually forgiveness conversations. So letter writing is great, and if we can take that to the next level and either actually have conversations with people, and you can do this for yourself too, is great. So the way you would do like a forgiveness conversation with yourself, you can do it a couple ways. So you can either do it in the mirror with yourself, which is very impactful, but it's also very, very intense. So if you are newer to trying to forgive yourself and like a lot of judgment and pain and any type of like overwhelm is coming up, I wouldn't necessarily start with the mirror unless you know how to handle and like kind of coach yourself through those emotions that may come up. And then the other way that you can do it is the same way that you can do it if you have people where it would benefit to have a forgiveness conversation, but maybe, but for some reason you can't actually have that live conversation with them, right? So maybe it's someone who's passed on already, so it's really literally not an option. Maybe it's someone who, like, you know, you guys fell out over something and you're ready to try to forgive and they're not, so they're not talking to you or whatever the case may be. But for some reason, like having the actual physical conversation with them isn't possible, then what you can do is you can actually do it as like a meditation or a visualization where you sit down and you invite this other person into the conversation, like to sit down with you, right? And you would say your part, and then you're going to have to imagine what their part would be, right? It's kind of a role-playing exercise. And then just have that conversation out just for the sake of the energetic release that happens, right? Like that freedom, that breaking of those bonds that guilt and shame can bring. So those are my 4 favorite tools for forgiveness work. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for your time and attention. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, share this episode with them. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night or day, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.